The state visit to France is cancelled after threats of more civil unrest. The King and Queen were due to travel to Paris for his first visit as monarch. But when French demonstrators pledged to take to the streets again, the president decided the risk was too high.
Ultimately, you're a guest, and if the host turns around and says the party's off, then there's not much you can do about it.
Well, it was to be a significant and symbolic show of friendship between Britain and France with a glittering state banquet at Versailles. But officials fear that could inflame tensions further, so plans have been postponed. Also tonight, the PM backs Ofsted, standing firm on school inspections, despite growing pressure from anxious head teachers.
You live in fear of the phone call. I lost half a stone in 2 days. I lost my voice. I felt traumatised.
More trees, happier salmon. The Riverside planting scheme set to offset hotter summers and give fish the shade they need. And treading hallowed ground, how visitors can follow in the footsteps of kings and queens, but it's strictly socks only.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. And the King has been forced to abandon plans for his historic state visit to France, with violent protests set to continue. The royal trip next week was set to be Charles's first overseas visit as king. He was to address the French Senate, the first British monarch to do so. And with further strikes and protests over France's new pension laws planned for Tuesday, President Macron called it off. There were security fears and also concerns that it could cause embarrassment for both countries. Here's our royal editor, Chris Shipp.
It is undisputably one of the world's finest capital cities, but Paris this morning looked like a very sorry place. As Parisians surveyed the damage after yesterday's violent protests, they were not surprised, but a little embarrassed that the King and Queen's big state visit had been called off. He's not coming, this woman said.
Dommage pour notre pays.
Such a shame for our country.
I think it's maybe better if the King comes next time because of all, the trash, the garbages you have in Paris. It's safer, I think so.
We are ashamed for our country to be in such a bad situation. And I hope the King will be happy to come anyway.
The King and Queen were due to arrive here on Sunday, and at the British Embassy in Paris, the flags with Charles III's new cipher had already been hung.
The King doesn't have any great say in this. Every step of a state visit is planned in minute detail by both sides. But ultimately, you're a guest, and if the host turns around and says the party's off, then there's not much you can do about it.
Remember, France had the honour of not just hosting the new monarch's first visit to France, but the first ever foreign trip of the King's new reign. All week, Buckingham Palace were tinkering with the programme, changing a tram ride here and a state banquet there. But this morning, President Macron telephoned the King to tell him, with another day of protests planned, he had no choice but to call the whole thing off. As well as Paris, the King and Queen were due to visit Bordeaux. Well, this was Bordeaux Town Hall last night, where the royal party were due to hold a reception on Tuesday.
State visits are a fantastic amount of work.
Lord Ricketts organised the last state visit to France when the late Queen travelled there in 2014. He says it became clear overnight that the King's visit next week had the potential to backfire.
A state visit is supposed to be a celebration. And if it goes ahead in conditions where the police have to throw great rings around the two principals, they can't go and meet the crowds, there's a worry about embarrassing incidents, it's better to put it off and do it at calmer times.
President Macron called it a common-sense decision. Given another day of protests were planned on Tuesday, it means the banners for King Charles will have to be put in storage until a new and safer time has been found.
Well, we'll talk to Chris Shipp in just a moment. But first, let's go to Lucy Watson, who's in Paris tonight. Now, Lucy, you were in the middle of some of those protests yesterday. Is there any doubt, you think, that this was the right thing to do?
No doubt at all, Mary, but this is a real blow to President Emmanuel Macron and France's world image. They had planned to put on all the stops here for the King and Queen. A visit to the Arc de Triomphe. The seating is still in place right in front of it for those who are going to come and watch. A state banquet at the Palace of Versailles and a huge parade through the capital involving around 140 horses. But today the Elysee Palace said that they simply couldn't guarantee a peaceful and orderly visit after yesterday yet another day of national strike action was announced for next Tuesday, which is a day which would fall right in the middle of the royal visit. Now, as you say, Mary, there was another national day of action yesterday and we witnessed peaceful protests turn very, very quickly into scenes of violent social unrest. Now, there is embarrassment for that violence here, but also what it is now presenting France as. Now, of course, it's highly unlikely that the Prince himself would have faced any danger, but President Macron, in this current political climate of chaos, quite frankly, has far more pressing matters he needs to deal with. Now, the decision is indeed a wise one to avoid any diplomatic incident, but it is also being seen as an admission of a deepening political crisis here in France, and that the streets are dictating Macron's moves, something he denies.
OK, Lucy Watson in Paris, thank you. So, Chris, no France then, but that wasn't all there was going to be. So what about the rest of the trip?
Well, there were two parts next week. One was France and the second part was Germany. The German part, as far as we know, is still going ahead as planned. Look, Mary, there was something of the inevitability of today's decision. I was kind of increasingly wondering through the week if I'd be packing my bags for Paris on Sunday, and of course, now I won't be. And it's not just, you know, the danger, the potential danger, but also the optics for President Macron of, like, hosting a state banquet in the Palace of Versailles with all the history in that building as well, while his people are on the streets. But, you know, Germany is still going ahead, Berlin and Hamburg, and they now, of course, get the honour of hosting the King's first foreign visit of the new reign. OK, so you're off to Germany instead then. OK, Chris, thank you very much indeed. Now, Downing Street says the Prime Minister supports the education watchdog, Ofsted, following anger over the suspected suicide of head teacher Ruth Perry. She died in January as she waited for the publication of an Ofsted report, which downgraded her primary school to the lowest level. But the head of the regulator says stopping inspections would not be in the best interests of children. And a former chief inspector of schools for England has told ITV News Ofsted is a force for good. Here's our deputy political editor, Anushka Astana.
To those who loved her, Ruth Perry's decision to take her own life can be directly linked to Ofsted and its decision to downgrade her school in Caversham, Reading, from outstanding to inadequate. Today, two of her friends and colleagues who run nearby primary schools have decided to speak out.
We want to make sure that we get the message out that Ofsted cannot do this to anyone else again.
They say this inspection regime goes too far.
You live in fear of the phone call. I lost half a stone in 2 days. I lost my voice. I felt traumatised.
We want to make sure that her death is not in vain. We absolutely want inspections. We know that they need to happen, but we need them to be much more compassionate.
Today, the Prime Minister's spokesman said Rishi Sunak did have confidence in the current rating system, saying parents rely on it. And Ofsted resisted calls to halt inspections. Chief Inspector Amanda Spielman said the sad news about Ruth has led to an understandable outpouring of grief and anger. But, she added, I don't believe that stopping or preventing inspections would be in children's best interests. The National Education Union says the Ofsted regime is causing serious mental health problems for teachers and heads.
It's not fit for purpose. It should be replaced with an inspection system that is collaborative, that is supportive for head teachers and actually does what it should do, of encourage and support schools to improve the educational chances of children and young people.
And today, a former chief inspector of schools said he believed it was time for a change in direction.
Inspectors and Ofsted operate with consent, and obviously people feel that what's happening at the moment is very unfair, where one bad judgment on a particular issue can completely obscure the good work that goes on in other aspects of the school and destroy a head teacher's reputation and the reputation of the school.
There was pressure in Westminster too, with Labour calling on Ofsted to reflect on the culture of its inspections. But for now, the government is standing firm. There is no question that Ruth Perry's death has shone a very bright light on this issue. The government is facing intense pressure, and the real criticism is around the way that schools are labelled with one word. They can be called inadequate, even if there are positive things to say. And I've read that in reports today. Plenty of praise, but the word inadequate at the top. And that is why I thought it was interesting that while Amanda Spielman has resisted calls to halt inspections, she did say the broader debate around whether we should get rid of grades is a legitimate one.
Anushka Astana at Westminster, thank you. The Brexit deal for Northern Ireland has been formally signed off today. The Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, met the Vice President of the European Commission in London to approve the new arrangements set out in the Windsor Framework. The government won the backing of MPs earlier this week. And the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was met with protests outside Downing Street as he held talks with Rishi Sunak on trade and security. Protests have been rocking Israel over Mr Netanyahu's judicial overhauls. Now, retailers across Britain benefited from a stronger than expected February as people swapped eating out for cooking at home. Sales have now returned to pre-pandemic levels, but the Office for National Statistics says soaring prices are hitting consumer spending power. Our North of England reporter Kelly Foran sent this report from Stockport on the state of our high streets.
For many brides-to-be, this is one of their biggest and probably most expensive decisions to make. A charity shop might not be the first place that springs to mind for wedding dress shopping, but it's more popular here than ever before.
With the life costs, they don't want to spend £2,000 in something they're going to wear only once.
And how busy is it here? How many appointments do you have?
Now is basically Tuesday to Saturday, every day busy.
The way people are spending their money and where they're spending it means charity shops like this one have seen their profits increase by 17%.
I love a bargain. Yeah. My mum raised me right. She loves charity shops.
I very rarely buy stuff from shops, new shops. I'd rather shop around, so I'll go to like a pound shop or, you know, a discount shop.
And he's not alone in that. People are buying more here, but eating out less.
The number of heads in my restaurant is down by about 10 to 15% because they are feeling the pinch.
The latest figures show that in February the amount that people were buying in non-food stores went up by 2.4%. Department store sales volumes rose by 5.5%, while clothing stores saw their sales rise by 2.9%. Both of these increases were down to strong sales at discount stores like this one, which started off as a market.
From us opening the door in the morning to closing at night, you know, we can be locking up and people are saying, oh, are you closing? Can I come in? Because they want that cheaper product.
And it's those low price tags that have given retail sales a surprise boost.
It shows the resilience of the UK economy and the public. You know, whilst there is a cost of living crisis, it is a positive sign for the weeks and months to come.
The stats show people are still buying. They're just seeking out a bargain for their basket. Kelly Foran, ITV News, Stockport.
Well, there is plenty more still to come in the ITV Evening News, including just days left for the SNP to decide its future and choose a new leader to replace Nicola Sturgeon. Plant a tree to save a fish. Not perhaps an obvious move, but we'll explain how it's going to help the salmon in the River Dove. And after the coronation, Westminster Abbey offers a rare chance to stand on the very spot where it happened.
It's such a rare opportunity. Nobody apart from the clergy go up to this space, so it's going to be just a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
We will be back with that and more after the break.
Seen this?
I could get a place in education, do training, get a job, or even start my own business.
Beat your positivity with the Young Person's Guarantee.
Let Go.Compare help with all your pet insurance needs.
That's a bit much.
Isn't it, girl?
Go.compare!
The children of Wales are looking for someone. Someone who can make a real difference every day. And you could be just what they're looking for. Could you help a child grow and develop? Help shape their life? Start a career with progression, training and opportunity. Find your role in childcare and playwork at wecare.wales.
At Ninja Warrior UK Cardiff, you grip. You leap. You reach. You laugh. Can you beat the wall? Find your inner ninja at Ninja Warrior UK Cardiff. Book online at ninjawarrior.uk.
You know those times when you're not drinking, but you really fancy a lovely, cold, smooth Guinness? Well, guess what? Guinness Zero. We've taken the alcohol out, but left the Guinness in.
Did you know that Booking.com does flights too?
You mean you can find a huge selection of flights along with a huge selection of accommodations?
Yeah, but sorry, that's my phone. Can you use filters on that? Yeah, but can I have my phone back?
No, just...
Book flights, trips, and everything in between at Booking.com. Booking.com. Booking.yeah.
If you or someone you know owned or leased a diesel vehicle between 2009 and 2020, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Millions of drivers have been misled by numerous manufacturers about emissions, and hundreds of thousands have already filed a claim. It's easy to see if you're eligible. Simply visit our site now and check your vehicle instantly. It's completely free to sign up, and you can start your claim in seconds. Visit mydieselclaim.com and join thousands of others starting their claims today.
Old pensions, unlike old offices, never go out of date. See the benefits of combining them into one plan with Standard Life.
There's help for households. Are you over state pension age? If your weekly income is below £182.60 or £278.70 if you live with a partner, you could be eligible for pension credit, even if you own your home or have savings. It's worth, on average, £3,500 a year, and you could get help with heating bills and more, plus up to £900 in cost of living payments. Search pension credit or call 0800 99 1234.
Yeah.
Get 2 days of spring savings with up to 40% off in the Amazon Spring Sale. Starts Monday.
Hello and welcome back. Now, there is just a weekend of campaigning to go until the SNP unveils its new leader and the next First Minister of Scotland. Humza Yousaf, Ash Regan and Kate Forbes are all standing in a contest which has been plagued by drama and controversy. The winner will be announced on Monday. Here's our Scotland correspondent Peter Smith on the final push for votes.
A final flurry of campaigning after what has been a bitter contest. Not helped today by a banner suggesting the leadership race has been rigged by the SNP to favour Humza Yousaf. Kate Forbes' campaign team deny this was one of theirs, but she certainly has experienced bad blood. Colleagues in her own party openly criticised her for saying she's against same-sex marriage and abortions on religious grounds.
I am so relaxed about working with my colleagues. Many of them are my friends. To work with you? I think they will, because I think they're Democrats, and I think they will honour the choice that SNP members have made in this contest. I certainly will.
If you win, is the next general election still a de facto referendum?
No, it's not.
The favourite to win, Humza Yousaf, does not favour Nicola Sturgeon's de facto referendum plan either, but said he would deliver independence within 5 years.
We have to make sure we are making the case for a consistent majority so independence essentially becomes a settled will. That will then mean that all those political obstacles that are put in the way will disappear.
How will they disappear?
Well, in the same way that we created the Scottish Parliament. The Scottish Parliament and the desire for the Scottish Parliament became the settled will. Therefore, it could not be...
The Labour Party won a general election.
The Labour Party won a general election on the premise that they were offering.
And the reason they promised it, of course, was because it was clear that the settled will was for devolution, was for the Scottish Parliament. It could no longer be ignored.
The outsider candidate Ash Regan says her rivals are wishy-washy on independence.
If I'm leader and First Minister, I will be running the next election as an opportunity for the people of Scotland to choose if they want Scotland to become independent.
Hoping to capitalise on the SNP's state of flux, Labour leader Keir Starmer was back in Scotland today, his third trip in as many weeks. His party is targeting areas like Rutherglen, a seat Labour lost to the SNP. Labour are hoping that Nicola Sturgeon's departure opens the door to them being able to win again in areas like this and retaking Scotland. The SNP are hoping that a new leader breathes new life into the party.
I've been SNP now for about 6-7 years.
How are you feeling now that Nicola Sturgeon's gone?
I'd go back Labour.
All my family, mummy and daddy and granny, everybody was Labour.
Did you then switch to the SNP?
I did.
Can you see yourself staying with the SNP or going back to Labour now?
No, that's debatable.
SNP, and I'll stick with SNP.
You're staying SNP
Yes.
even after Nicola Sturgeon?
Well, I don't know. I need to think about it, see who gets
And you need to get this bus as well?
Yeah, thank you.
From Monday, Scotland will have a new First Minister. Their first job will be uniting their own party. Then they must convince Scots there is life in the SNP after Nicola Sturgeon. Peter Smith, ITV News, Glasgow.
A Metropolitan Police officer has been sentenced to 5 years in prison after admitting to a string of child sex offences. 22-year-old PC Hussein Shihab was arrested in August 2021 after the family of a young girl raised concerns she was in a sexual relationship with him, which began when she was 14. Shihab also admitted to taking indecent photographs of a child while he was a Safe for Schools officer. An alibi witness in the trial of Thomas Cashman, who is accused of murdering 9-year-old Olivia Pratt-Corbell in Liverpool, has told the court he is innocent. Nicky McHale, who is a friend of Cashman's, told the jury he saw and spoke to him at the time of the alleged shooting, but the prosecution has accused him of lying. Next, how trees are being used to help increase the number of salmon in England's rivers. A new scheme in Uttoxeter is planting more than 2,000 trees along the banks of the River Dove. Our Midlands correspondent Stacey Foster explains.
This part of the River Dove near Uttoxeter is exposed to the elements. The water is fast flowing in places and the banks are eroding quickly. 2,000 trees are being planted along this 3.5 kilometre stretch. The new woodland is designed to climate-proof the river, providing shade and habitat.
Why are we doing this, Ruth? What's the benefit of putting trees right as close as this to the river?
Tree cover is needed to shade the river. It stabilises the banks, it reduces erosion, and it enables the river to respond and become much more natural, lots more natural flows in the river.
So what you're doing now, when will we see the benefits?
So we're doing this now. These trees are going to take a good 5-10 years to come to maturity before they really start to cast any shade over the river. We're doing it to future-proof the river.
The main beneficiaries of this work will be the species on the riverbed. Salmon were reintroduced to the Dove 20 years ago, but the rising temperatures of the water mean they're at risk again.
Last summer was the hottest on record and this river got far too warm for the salmon to survive. So by planting more trees and creating shaded areas, it can reduce the water temperature by up to 6 degrees.
The farmer who owns this land has given up grazing areas for his sheep to allow this planting to happen.
Our rivers and our oceans aren't in good health at the moment, and so people like Ruth at Trent Rivers Trust and Transforming the Trent Valley need to work with communities and landowners to try and improve things.
The efforts of a small team today are slowing the effects of climate change on the river in the future. And there's a real sense of hope that as these trees grow, they'll cast a shadow on the water, securing the future of the salmon species. Stacey Foster, ITV News, Uttoxeter.
Next tonight, what's set to be the crowning glory of royal selfie spots. Westminster Abbey is starting a new tour, allowing the public to walk on the exact place where King Charles will be crowned. Known as the Cosmati pavement, the centuries-old mosaic will have the throne placed upon it for the coronation. And you can see it too, just as long as you're happy to take your shoes off, as Carrie Davis now reports.
The Archbishop gently sets this splendid emblem on the Queen's head.
It's a sacred site that hasn't been seen in Britain for 7 decades, but in 6 weeks it's happening again. Like dozens of monarchs before him, King Charles will be crowned in Westminster Abbey, on the exact same spot his mother was. And not long after, tourists will be able to follow in their footsteps.
We're offering a Church and Crown tour, which for the first time ever will give a small group of people each day the opportunity to actually go onto the Cosmati pavement, which is the scene of the coronation.
Named after the Italian craftsman who created it, the Cosmati pavement was commissioned by King Henry III and completed in 1268. But by the 19th century, the once glistening mosaic had become battered. During the Queen's coronation in 1953, it was covered by carpet and then roped off from the public.
Nobody, apart from the clergy, go up to this space. So for visitors to come here and be able to walk on the pavement and get up close and look at the designs and all the different materials that make up this incredible piece of art, it's going to be just a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
But it's an experience visitors will have to enjoy in their socks. A condition of the special tours is that people go shoeless, but not barefoot, to protect the 13th century surface. It's not revered by everyone. Earlier this week, it became a place of anti-monarchist protest. But those who've secured the now sold-out tickets will want to slip on their best pair of socks for this walk through history. Carrie Davis, ITV News.
Want to read more about today's stories? You can go to our website, itv.com/news. It is just coming up to 7 o'clock. Emmerdale's here in half an hour. But first, we'll be joining Coast and Country with Ruth Dodsworth and Sean Fletcher as they visit the 14th century Tretower Castle and Court and sample a rum with a taste of the sea. Well, that's all from me and the Evening News team here. The weather's up next and Raggie's here later with news at 10. But from all of us, good evening and have a great weekend.